What does success look like when you have the house, the cars, the income, and you still feel like you're losing? Today's guest, Jim Sabellico, built businesses from the age of 8, chased every financial milestone, and came home one night to a half-eaten birthday cake and realized he's been building on the wrong foundation. In this conversation, Jim breaks down the mindset shift that changed everything, how he redefined success, and what it actually takes to lead well at home and at work, and why the story you've been avoiding might be your greatest asset. Let's get into it. Welcome back to the Lead with More podcast. Today I'm joined by Jim Sabellico. I'd like to start out, first of all, by welcoming you, Jim, to the podcast. How about giving us just a little bit of background into your story and how you got where you are now?
Well, I love that. So first off, thank you for the opportunity to be here and for having me. I'm excited for this conversation. And I would love to share some background about me. So I think the best place to get started with that story is 8 years old. I started my first business, which sounds a little absurd, but I was home in the summertime, had an older brother and older sister who were supposed to be watching me while my parents were at work. They were high school age. So it was just like, hey, make sure he's somewhere safe. That's fine. So I didn't want to sit around, and there wasn't, iPhones and TikTok back then. So I did what I thought I should do, and I grabbed the family lawnmower, walked around the neighborhood, and I would make a couple $100 a week as an 8-year-old kid. And that initial sense of like, holy crap, money is cool feeling carried over through the rest of my early adulthood. And right, we go through middle school, through high school. I have all sorts of different side ventures. Throughout college, I have a business. I'm working 80 hours a week while going to school. Everything is full-time business. Let's make as much money as you can. So I developed this sense of like, hey, money is awesome. That's how we determine success, by, growing income, buying all the toys you wanted. And it came down to whatever car, whatever computer, whatever vacation, whatever you wanted to do, I did it. Now we move into the relationship and kid phase, right? So I get married. We have our first kid. And I remember this day very vividly. Before my son's actually born, my wife is 9 months pregnant. She comes home one day. She got her tote bag in each arm. And she's like, wiped. Now, again, granted, she is 9 months pregnant. She's working. She is exhausted. She says, I don't care if I have to eat peanut butter and jelly anymore. I don't want to work. I just want to be home. I interpreted that as, all right, cool, Jim, go do what you can do. Go make sure that you can provide for your wife and your upcoming kid so that your wife can stay home. She could be a stay-at-home mom. So I leaned hard into income producing, right? Providing for my family in the sense of, hey, making sure that they have everything they need from a financial perspective, because that's what I knew how to do, right? That's what I spent my whole childhood doing, was making money. I had no clue how to change a diaper, no clue what to do with a crying baby. That I didn't have that skill set. So I made a business decision and said, hey, your wife is really good with kids. She was a nanny. So she, like, raising kids was her game. Making money was mine. Said, hey, this works out great. I'll continue to make money. She can take care of the kid. Awesome. And that's what we did, right? For 6 straight years. October 29, 2019 is my son's 6th birthday. I come home 8:45 at night, pull in the driveway, walk in the front door. Hey, dad's home. Who's excited? Let's have some birthday cake. Everyone's wiped, right? My son had some friends over that day. My wife is exhausted from dealing with the kids. My own kids, I have a son and a daughter. They're ready for bed. But hey, dad's home. Let's be excited and have some birthday cake. So I come in the kitchen, and my wife, who is again just wiped from the day, plops this half-eaten birthday cake on the table. And I'm standing there in that moment, feeling all of the feelings. Feeling disappointment from like, how did I miss this? Right? What was I doing working that I missed my son's birthday? Like the realization that, hey, this opportunity came and went, and you weren't here for it, right? And I also felt, pissed off, frankly. Hey, how dare you not wait for me, right? I'm out there providing for our family, and you don't have the decency to wait for me, type of, feeling to it. All the feelings. but we sing happy birthday, try and make the best of it. But like deep down that moment, right, standing there in front of that half-eaten birthday cake, I realized like, hey, this is not what success is supposed to feel like. I didn't realize it like in that very moment. I would come to realize in the weeks after, but I was on the brink of divorce. Like my wife was done, ready to just move on because I wasn't there, right? I was providing financially. I was no help around the house. She was basically a single mom with a large credit line is what it amounted to, right? I didn't know my kids. I'm in the worst physical shape of my life. Like every metric other than money, house, car, toy is in the absolute gutter. And that moment for me, standing there in front of that half-eaten birthday cake, was like the moment that I realized, hey, something's got to change. And what has happened in the past 6+ years since then has been just the evolution of figuring out who the heck I am, what I am here for, and making the very best of all of that.
What we now come to call a defining moment. And I think everybody has moments like this, but you described two mindsets in that moment. You described the one that I think most people get stuck in of, how dare you not wait for me? I've been working all day. And you didn't wait. And you had this other mindset that was there, and it didn't sink in immediately, but it did within the next couple of weeks take hold. And talk a little bit about that mindset shift and how that shifted things for you.
Yeah, I would love to, because I think that like that one question right there, you kind of hit the nail on the head for why I do what I do right now, is because in the time right after that birthday cake experience, I started out with that frustration, right? Feeling like, hey, everyone else sucks. I'm doing the best I can. I'm not out drinking and gambling. I'm providing for my family. I'm trying really hard. Why is it my fault? Right? Why am I the bad guy? And I feel like a lot of people do stay stuck in that. And for me, the shift happened when I saw what I call a picture of possibility, right? I met a person who was a successful father, successful business person, a successful husband, right? He had all those things that I thought were impossible to kind of carry at the same time. And I saw a real life version of, hey, how do you walk that out? Right? What does that actually look like in practicality? Hey, day to day, not just in a book that sounds great, like, oh yeah, you could do all these things, but like when you see it and talk to a real person that does those things and makes it real for you, that to me was like, all right, cool. If he can do it, so can I. Right. So that picture of possibility, I think, is super important. And that's a tremendous reason why I continue to do what I do now, why I have my own podcast, why I coach people is to give them that picture of like, hey, I've been there, right? Here's exactly what my day-to-day looks like. And if I can do it, you can too, but it's not going to be easy to do it alone, right? You need someone kind of by your side through those first initial reps to really help you get the weight up, right? To really help you understand like, all right, cool. How do you start this process? Because you're not going to be able to do it alone, right? This is not the type of thing that you can just kind of grit through and do by yourself. You need someone next to you to kind of help you initially, right? Get that momentum up when, again, when you're first getting started. I think that person by your side, whether that's a coach, mentor, a good friend, family, whoever it is, someone who can kind of sit next to you and support you from a judgment-free zone, right? They're going to criticize you to a point, but it's out of love, right? They're not going to make fun of you. They're going to hold you to a standard without judging you. And I think that's what's really important.
Yeah. You talk about on your website this concept of building on the wrong foundation and how that applies to your definition of success. And so we all experience things. I hear things, we learn things about that. But at that point, it becomes real. And it moves from this idea of a head concept into something that, all right, this thing is real. My question for you is, as you now start to work with people that are trying to go through these same things, um, what are you doing to help people move from that concept of I know this in my head to wait a minute, now this is revelation, this is real stuff, and it becomes something they can work with?
Listening is the simplest way I can put it. I think most people truly know what they need to do. We kind of get caught up in our own heads a lot and talk ourselves out of it because it seems super scary. But I think when you can really help someone feel loved, appreciated, seen, and heard, they kind of unlock, right, the ability to do whatever the heck they wanted to do in the first place. But they were so caught up in the emotions and, hey, it's scary and all the stuff that they tell themselves right in their own head. And it kind of becomes this cage that they build for themselves. And I'm not doing anything truly magical or special other than being willing to sit and listen to someone and reflect back, right, and say, hey, this is what I'm hearing, right? And let's talk it through. I'll sit with you. We'll have the conversation. Right. I will open book share my life. Right. You can gladly learn from my mistakes. But there is no one magic answer that I can give. Right. And I think that that's where a lot of people trip up. Right. They look for, hey, what is the instruction set to follow? There isn't one. Okay. Mine is going to be very different from yours. I can share what I did, but I'm not saying follow my steps directly one at a time. It's not going to work. You get a different recipe.
Right.
Right. And I think that's where a lot of people get kind of screwed up is they're just looking for, hey, what do I do? Tell me step by step. Let me just follow that. And, eventually they try that. It doesn't necessarily work out. And then they think they are the problem. And, that's an unfortunate situation.
So I don't know if you ran into this, but I know that when I got my first coach, that I was so used to as a business leader, I was so used to giving when he'd ask questions, I would give these answers that a business leader, a CEO, that somebody that's supposed to paint this positive picture would give, that's always supposed to be looking on the bright side. And it took me a while to figure out that that's not helping him coach me. Do you see that in the people that you coach, the people that you talk to, or within yourself? Was that a switch that you noticed?
Yeah, 100%. And I think, to some degree, you have to have the ability to kind of see through that and translate that. Like you have to understand most people are going to paint a safer picture of themselves than really exists, right? We don't want to think less of ourselves. In most cases, we want to try and paint the rosiest picture we can. So where I believe it's kind of my job is to really interpret that and help you kind of walk through that where, yeah, you can tell me what you're going to tell me. I'm going to see kind of exactly what's going on and put myself in your shoes and understand, hey, why is it you feel that way? Right. And how do we get to what is the actual root and not come at you in a combative way, right? Because that doesn't help anybody. That just, leads to pain and chaos. But kind of understand, all right, cool. I understand why you believe this. Let me help you move to the next step, right? Where you're going to start to break down some of those false beliefs and understand, hey, who are you truly? Take the mask off a little bit when you feel safe to do so. I think it has to be that translation process rather than just, the smack upside of the head and say, hey man, you're thinking about it wrong. Most people don't want to be corrected like that. It doesn't really help them move forward easily.
Once again, I think there's a mindset shift that has to happen in the person being coached. And, I think this mindset thing is so key because I listen to what you talk about as being a successful business person by all worldly accounts, and yet still walking home into that situation. It's very easy to get overwhelmed by that. And so I think that what you talk about starts to lead us to this idea of you don't have to be overwhelmed. In fact, there's ways that you can avoid all of this, that you can live this more balanced, this fuller life, and not have this sense of overwhelm. And what do you run into with the people you're coaching? Is that something you see a lot of?
Yeah, it is. And I think it really hinges mostly around self-worth. So let me just kind of explain that a little bit. You run into a lot of people who they interpret their worth as their ability to provide financially or their ability to be successful in business. And because they've identified that as like a major part of their lives, everything else kind of gets swept underneath that. Like, yeah, maybe you're not showing up as the best husband, but your business is growing by leaps and bounds. So, you're able to provide your wife with X, Y, and Z, and you just kind of brush the stuff under the rug. Because you feel like if you admit, hey, I'm maybe not showing up as the best husband, it suddenly crumbles your identity. And that's where I think a lot of people lose it. And they understand like, hey, then is my identity that I'm a bad husband? No, your identity is, hey, who are you truly underneath all of that? Your ability to be a good husband or a good dad or a good friend is not your definition of your worth, right? You're worth a tremendous amount. And I think people need to kind of separate that part and say, hey, what are you truly worth at the end of the day? You are a one of one who was put on this earth for a specific reason to fulfill a specific purpose. That is priceless. And I think once you can get rid of the other stuff and truly understand how priceless and worthy you are here, then you can start to look at the other stuff as just kind of like a characteristic, right? It's just a part of who you are right now. You can adjust those sliders up or down like you're playing a video game and you want to make your character better. You can do that. It doesn't change your worth. So I think for a lot of people, once they kind of break down that wall and understand, hey, I'm not who the world says I am, right? I'm not either this best business person and then I can just brush the other stuff under the rug, or I can just forget about it because it's uncomfortable to talk about, but truly understanding how freaking worthy you are of being here. Then you can kind of look at, all right, cool. I can poke at, hey, how can I show up better as a dad? How can I show up better as a friend? Because it's not affecting what I'm worth, right? So that part I think is super important to get started first.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, people are not likely to remember you because of what you accomplished as a business person. I want to ask you about your thoughts on this term work-life balance. And without telling you what I think about it, I'd love to get your input on how you approach this idea of work-life balance.
Yeah. So my answer on work-life balance is it is a sham, at least that phrase specifically, that most people use as a justification to not work. So the way that I see it used most often is by saying, hey, I need to work on my work-life balance, so I'm going to go do this thing and avoid the uncomfortableness of my job. That's how I see most people use it. Balance to me means running back and forth between two different sides. That tends to get exhausting. The way that I like to approach it is more of a harmony, right? Where things can kind of coexist, where it's like, hey, I've structured my life in such a way that you can't tell if I'm working or at play. You've got no clue. Okay. And it's very intentional that, hey, there is no clear distinction between when I'm at work and when I'm at play. I am the same version of Jim Sabellico no matter where I go. Okay. And this version shows up everywhere, right? So it's kind of that integration of, hey, you are who you say you are. You operate with the same core values. It makes it way easier to shift from work to home because you're the same person, right? The decision sets are the same. You don't have to wear two different hats. You just show up as you, and it just makes everything so much easier. Yeah, I think the work-life balance phrase is a phrase that people use so often just to get out of doing hard stuff. It's just avoiding the uncomfortable. But to me, it's about
Yeah.
really, figuring out how to structure your life in a way that just you get to enjoy.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it's one of those terms that people understand. There's a lot of recognition with the phrase, and it can open a conversation, but then I think it has to go where you talk about it, because I agree. I don't like the term. I look at it more as the tension between different realms, and it's not just work and life. It's all these different things of who you are, and you're constantly adjusting for the needs of it. So, um,
Well, I think there's
but
another part of
that
it
was,
too, just to dig a little deeper on it about, right, like what we talked about before about meeting someone where they're at. For you and I to have this conversation on work-life balance is going to be a little bit different than I'm going to have this conversation with someone who is just stuck in the mud, who's got 0 reps in doing this. Yeah, we can talk about it because that's what you're going to relate to, right? I'm not going to tell you, hey, everything about your understanding is wrong. That's not going to be very productive to your growth. Okay. So we're going to meet you where you're at, right? Talk through this. And yeah, once you get some reps in, you'll kind of start to see for yourself. But I think that's something that people need to hear, because I don't want people to look at it like, you two guys right now on this podcast are absolutely out of your minds, because it's far into them where they're at. I think that perspective is really
yeah.
important.
Yeah, and understanding that it's really a journey. It's a series of steps, because I think you would agree that neither one of us reached this conclusion, this point in our lives immediately. We didn't just jump here. This has been a series of things that we've gone through. And my guess is that even with this defining moment we're talking about in your story, that there were other moments that might have been as defining, or that may have moved you closer to being ready to take that mindset shift. That they all work together. It may not have been just a single moment, but that may have been the final trigger that got the mindset shift going.
Yeah, no, 100%. And there's a ton of them, and they still continue to happen to this day. I can think of one of those moments that was less than 2 weeks ago. It's I guess the way that I would explain it is little sparks, right? It's not this one grandiose experience that just suddenly changes your life and everything else is just on easy mode after that. It's you kind of deciding to give meaning to the moment and saying, "Hey, I don't feel like feeling like this anymore." Right? And that could very well be this podcast right now when you're listening to it and you say, "Hey, I feel like today is going to be the day where I'm assigning meaning to the moment. I'm going to remember exactly where I was when I heard this podcast. I'm going to remember that that was the day that I decided to take things a little bit more seriously and start." Right? And that's what it takes. And it's not just going to be this one decision and that's it. It's a series of decisions after that. It's going to be thousands of them. But you got to start with one, right? There's got to be that one
Yeah.
moment where you decide, "Hey, I don't feel like feeling like this anymore." And just
Yeah.
decide not to go backwards.
Yeah. So do you find that because now that you've had moments like this, where you've had some real defining moments, that you suddenly become aware of these moments? They may not be as dramatic or as huge, but you start to become a lot more aware of these little places where you get some fresh insight, and it starts to shift your direction.
Yeah, 100%. And, I think that's
Yeah.
a big part is really kind of having that calm to your life, right? Where you can remove a lot of the noise. And it's a very active process, right? You got to be doing that daily because there is a lot of noise that creeps in. But just to be able to look at it from kind of a third person perspective and say, "Hey, how is this working for my good?" I think if you are willing to look for that, you're going to find it more often than not.
Yeah. So what's an example of something you do to carve out and get away from the noise for yourself on a daily or weekly basis?
This, to be honest with you, having conversations like this is a huge part of that for me. I find tremendous enjoyment in it. There's all sorts of random stuff from. I enjoy taking pictures at my kids' sports events and then sharing them with parents. That one's a fun one for me. I enjoy painting. I enjoy 3D modeling. There's a lot of like random little hobbies. Creating is a big part of it. I enjoy the creation and artistic part of things. It's
Yeah.
allows me to kind of get out of my head and just free flow.
So do you find that when you're out of your head, that may not come out right, but you know what I mean? When you're in that mode, do you find that you have a new clarity on things that do relate to the business side?
Yeah, 100%. I think it's akin to like a imagine most people can relate to this where maybe you've had that one really clear thought while you were in the shower or on a walk, because you're not in that same routine every day and you're not surrounded by things that are dinging and buzzing and you're able to kind of just be mentally free for a minute. Subconsciously you'll process a lot more and things begin to click. Intentionally putting yourself in that position allows kind of that to happen more.
So, how do you capture those ideas when they come in when you're not at work? Do you have a method, any kind of hacks that you use?
I do actually. I use the Notes app in my phone.
Hmm.
So I have one note and it's called the Scratch Pad, and I have it
Hmm.
right on my screen right here. It's on my it's on my desktop, and I keep it on my phone. It's all synced up. So anytime I have a thought, whether it's, "Hey, you got to order dog food. Hey, you got to do X, Y, and Z. You got to remember whatever." I write it in there, and it's always within a 3 to 5 second reach. I just jot down the list, and then at night, what I'll do is I'll sort it. So I'll go through and whatever I can delegate to somebody else, whatever I can automate, I'll do that, kind of get it off the list. But just make sure that there's like that one place where you can just get it out of your head onto somewhere, whether it's physical paper, whether it's a note app, whatever it is. For me, that's what works.
Yeah, I love talking about that stuff because I'm a geek around productivity hacks, and so I'm constantly uh, asking people about that. Now, I've gotten to the point where I don't change things as often as I used to because I've got a system that works and it's ingrained. And I found that sometimes you can just change too much, too fast, and you're just creating more mental load for yourself when you don't need to.
Yeah.
But
I will say
I do
too,
enjoy talking about it.
just to add another one, is setting up bases, like a
Yeah.
home base, just for supreme productivity. One is my desk, the other is kind of the side of my bed. Areas that you know you're going to frequent at a certain time, if you can set those up intentionally for the things that you want to do in that spot, it kind of sets the routine for you, right? So whatever that is, if you want to, I don't know, I can't think of a good example at this point, but you want to take your
Yeah.
vitamins rather
Yeah.
than keeping your
Yeah.
vitamins tucked away in a closet, you have them lined up nice and neat
Yeah.
in a certain spot
Yeah.
that you know you're going to be. It's going to prompt you. It kind of makes it a little bit more automatic.
Yeah, I like to call those triggers because I do that at the end of each day. If I know I want to go to the gym in the morning, I put all my gym stuff out on the sink in the bathroom before I go to bed. And then when I get up in the morning, that's the trigger to get me to do it. And so that, I mean, that's a great hack, a great way to stay motivated, to kind of use this crazy thing in your head called a brain, and take advantage of all the automation that it wants to work with. But I want to get to the formation of the company or what you're doing now, because you took this mindset shift and this new revelation, and you refocused it into, I think you mentioned it, that you spent this time kind of figuring out who you were and where you really wanted to go and what you were doing, what value you were bringing to the world. And so how did this shift into what you're doing now?
So I think it kind of really ties into a lot of stuff we talked about, whether that's enjoying this process of having conversations and working with people as a thing that fills my own cup. There's the picture of possibility, right? That thing that was so beneficial to me. Now I want to provide that for other people as well. So really just kind of the cohesion of all of that. But to me, it's really looking for opportunities where I can kind of serve and continue to fulfill my purpose. So I find a lot of purpose in helping other people kind of live their best life. So for me, that's what I'm pursuing right now. And anywhere that I can continue to do that, I'm going to, right? We're going to continue to kind of sharpen the point on that.
And one of the things that you're doing is helping people get these stories into writing, into
Yes.
publication. And I'm a big proponent. I journal every day, but the concept of taking that into some kind of a published work, um, I could see where that would be a stumbling point for a lot of people. I don't think I could take, even with what I've written, I don't think I could automatically take it to that next step. So this is one of the things that you do.
It is, yes. So I've written 6 books, and the part that we're talking about right now that I enjoy the most is really the ability to sit with someone like yourself, like, whoever it might be, and we have a conversation, right? And you and I are just having a conversation. In the background, in my head, I'm kind of, putting together a story, right? I'm hearing the things that you're not saying. I'm hearing kind of between the lines, and developing kind of what that story is. So there's a couple different reasons why I find that it works really well. Number one is it helps you, right, the person I'm having the conversation with, hear yourself in a very different way. Number two, it helps kind of cement that. So now once we put that all together into a physical book someone can hold and read, it makes it a lot easier for you yourself to then go back to and say, hey, yeah, this really is me, right? I'm maybe going to waver a little bit and feel like I didn't get enough reps in being this my true identity. But look, here it is in black and white, right? And I can fall back on
Hmm.
that when sometimes I start to doubt who I am. Because that's a part that a lot of people don't talk about is that still normal? Right? Even when you've gone through 6+ years of work, sometimes that doubt still creeps in, right? And when you have that thing right in front of you, you can say, hey man, like, look, this is who you are. This is what you committed to. This is in very clear black and white exactly your story. And I think that there's a tremendous power in that too, because most people will diminish the power of their own story, right? Because
Yeah.
we're in our heads all day telling us, hey, man, you're not unique. You're not special. You've got no celebrity following. You're not, Kim Kardashian, like whatever example you want to use, maybe
Yeah.
not the best one. But the point is, a lot of people get in their own heads and they say, man, I'm not special. And I think that there are so many people who truly are. And if they would just lean into their story, right? I'm sure that there's going to be a few people who have
Yeah.
heard my story and say, hey, man, that resonates with me because I had this one experience where I missed X, Y, and Z and it felt powerful, blah, blah, blah. But if I didn't lean into that story, they would feel alone. And what I'm
Mhm.
trying to do is get people to understand that whatever their story is, whatever makes them unique, the thing that they think is what broke them is what's actually going to give them their breakthrough. But to me,
Mhm.
having that conversation, helping them realize like there's power in that, not only for yourself to kind of help you level up your life, but other people can unlock from that too. But if you don't
Yeah.
lean into that sucker and you don't share that story with other people, you stay stuck and so do other people. Right. So it's that part of it that like you can help encourage other people and multiply that power out. It lights me up.
Yeah, this understanding that everybody, they're the only people that can fulfill their purpose, their role in this life. And so that even if your role and you may not look like somebody else, you may not have the worldly success or at least the renown that people have, that you're still influencing somebody. You're still of value to somebody. And the key is to try to find that. I think that speaks. I know that I know that faith is a big part of that for you. It is for me. Whether it is for everybody, that's fine. To each his own. But that is one form of a base that can keep you grounded in pursuing a real purpose. And that's I'm in the stage of life where that's actually the pursuit now. It's not so much about all the other types of success. And I hate that it took me this long to get here, but I don't know that I could have gotten here sooner. I think I had to go through everything I've been through.
Yeah.
And I don't know, do you feel that same way about people, that even if you'd love for them to get there sooner, but at some point you realize they have to go through what they've got to go through?
100%. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, especially when you do with high achievers and that sort of thing, a lot of people like rely on that hustle and grind mentality to control all the variables and get to the life that they've so carefully crafted. And it's really frustrating to say like, hey, all that stuff is totally out of your control. Like to just look at the bigger picture and understand someone else is holding the pen. Like, yeah, you can do a whole lot of things. All right. And you can do a lot with what you're given, but the timing is going to be what the timing is going to be. Right. And you're going to be dragged from left and right. And you got to understand, like at a certain point, you'll look back at this and understand why you had to go through that. And if you don't
Yeah.
understand it yet, it just isn't time yet. So just continue to like put your best into each day and understand, hey, this thing that really sucks right now is going to be an awesome point in your story. Just not yet.
Yeah.
Right. So just, hang on to it for a little bit longer.
And that's, to me, that's where I think what you're doing and helping people to write this out becomes so important. I know that my practice I go back and review journal entries from a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, every day, just to see where I was and remind myself of either progress or what I was thinking or things that I said I was going to do. And there's tremendous value in getting this written. And so I think it's important for us to, before we wrap this up, to talk about how people can get in touch with you and talk a little bit about what you can do to help them with this process of getting their story in writing.
Yeah, I would love to. Before we do that, though, I just want to loop back to give you another little life hack, if you will, just based on what you just talked about, which is a thing that I've been doing for a while that I truly enjoy, is take a notebook and spend some time, however much time you need. Think about what your dream life would look and feel like in the next 5 years and do your best to write out like 200 little individual lines. I will have X, Y, and Z. This is what this will feel like. Whatever your life is going to feel like in that 5 year span. Write them all down. Try and get to
Yeah.
200. Okay. And then every week, pick a day, Sunday, Monday, whatever you want. Read that list. And when one of those things occurs, take a highlighter, highlight it off. you're going to start to recognize that these things are coming to you in your life. Okay. And that's going to build some faith. It's going to build some clarity for you. It's going to build some understanding that these things are coming to you. And you're going to start to see over time, these things are actually coming true. And it's going to help motivate you and keep you consistent on that path. It's going to keep you reminded of, hey, exactly what your life is supposed to look like. So just to, want to share that because I thought that was a little relevant to what we're talking about. But if you want to get in touch with me specifically, JimSabellico.com, nohalfcakes.com. I'm sure you'll leave links in show notes.
I'll put them in.
But I am on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. You can find me pretty much wherever. I am the only Jim Sabellico out there. So I'm not a hard guy to find.
Cool. Well, in wrapping this up, I'd love for you to try to boil this down into one thought that you'd like people to take away from this conversation.
Yeah. If I could, I would say this. When you get home, whatever time that is, okay, and you put your key in the front door, you pop in your numbers, whatever it is, however you get in your front door, you open that front door of your house, you take that first step in. I want you to let that be a trigger in your head to remember how much of the cake you're coming home to. Okay, when you open that front door and take that first step into your life, how much of the cake am I coming home to? Think about that in terms of your physical health, your financial health, your emotional health, your relational health, your spiritual health. Right? How much of that are you coming home to? Is there an area in your life where you're coming home to half a cake? And let that be a reminder that you can do something about it. Right? That's only up to you. Whatever that answer is doesn't matter to anybody else. It's you versus you. Okay. And if that answer is, hey, right now I'm not feeling the best as a husband, not feeling the best as, my faith isn't strong right now. Cool. Whatever the starting point is, the starting point is. If you need to share with someone, please feel free to share with me. You're more than welcome to reach out. I'll happily have that conversation with you. But get around someone who can help you walk through that. Okay, whatever the answer is, let it be the answer. And let it be the moment that you decide, hey, I'm going to make today the day I decide to do something about this. Okay, because that's your life. You only get one shot at it. We have no freaking clue how many more times you're going to walk through that door. Take it seriously. You owe it to yourself. And you are absolutely, unequivocally worth everything that you can ever possibly imagine and more. Okay, please do not ever forget that.
Man, that's such a great way to wrap this up. Jim, I've enjoyed our conversation today, and I just want to thank you for taking time to join me.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Jim gave us a lot to think about today, from the danger of tying your worth to your results, to the power of a picture of possibility, and to his challenge. When you walk through the front door tonight, ask yourself how much of the cake you're coming home to. That's a question worth sitting with. If this episode resonated with you, share it with a leader in your life who needs to hear it. If you want to connect with Jim, you can find him at jimsabellico.com or at nohalfcakes.com. I'll have the links in the show notes. Thank you for joining us today. Please like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Remember to keep leading with more.